Hi everyone, this is Carlo and welcome back to my channel. We go back to travel journaling today. I bought this lovely Concertina Multimedia Sketchbook by Sennelier and I want to create an illustrated travel journal all dedicated to my travel memories of when I was in the Nordic countries. So it's gonna be a project that will span through different videos. We're gonna start with beautiful Norway, more precisely with the cities of Flåm and Olden. I'm gonna talk you through the whole creative process, so feel free to grab a cup of coffee or tea and pen and paper so you can take some notes. This sketchbook has a smooth paper surface and it makes the writing of my journaling notes very easy. But at the same time, the paper has a great quality and thickness, which is a great asset for watercolor, so it's a win-win. And of course the concertina structure, this kind of accordion structure, it makes it beautiful to display once it's finished. So the first thing I'm gonna do is select some of the photos that I've taken during my time in Flåm and Olden and start visualizing a possible layout of the journal pages. The landscapes in Norway are breathtaking, so I really want to fill some of these pages entirely with illustration if it's possible, and some others will have a combination of images and text. Once I defined what photos I'm gonna use as a reference, I start the sketching process. I use a soft pencil to block the main lines of each image. Starting with this beautiful waterfall that I saw in the port area in Flåm. I think it's perfect as the opening of this whole journal dedicated to the Nordic countries, in my opinion. I suggest you at this stage not to go into much detail and to keep the pencil very light. The second page will have text and another illustration, a smaller one, on the bottom right corner this time. So I start planning where I want the image to be, what size, and I proceed with the sketching. Again, don't worry about the details, especially when you have a lot of trees to draw. Just go for the general outline for the time being. If the illustration is very intricate, like the interiors of this church that I saw in Olden, use tracing paper to make your life easy. I always say it, tracing paper is one of our best friends. It's not cheating at all, it just makes everything quicker. Remember to flip the image horizontally before tracing it, so that when you transfer it to the journal, it will match the real photo and it will not look like you're looking in the mirror. If you realize that you went too heavy with the pencil, you can use an eraser to soften the drawing, and also to remove any unwanted lines. I like to write my titles, like for example the names of the cities, using the same font across all my journals, well, most of them. So I usually type these titles on a Word document, I print them, and once I decided where I want to position them, I do a carbon copy transfer, simply turning the strips of paper around, scribbling a thick layer of soft pencil, and after securing them with some paper tape, I trace the outline of the text on my journal. Then you can of course retouch the lines and color the letters in, which I will do later on. Second stage is the loose coloring of our illustrations. We're gonna apply a couple of layers of watercolor, but we're gonna do it very loosely, lightly and kind of freely, without really paying much attention to the small details. I mixed together 3 base colors for every image that I will tweak along the way, adding more pigment or a different shade of color. Remember the rule of watercolor, you always go light to dark. So to start with, we use a lot of water to make the color really light. We wet the page to begin with, that will guarantee a soft blend all over. And at this stage I usually dab my brush on paper to define the color of the main areas, keeping it very light. Don't be scared if the colors bleed into each other, because it will create a beautiful effect once it's dry, as long as you've kept your color light and watery. I genuinely love to apply watercolor loosely. I think it's a very creative and liberating process. I love to add little puddles or drops of watercolor on my pages that give my illustrations that look of roughness around the edges and makes them a little bit more dynamic as well. Oh my god, I need to tell you about this little church in Olden. It's called Old Olden Church. I was on a morning walk just exploring and I found this stunning white church in the middle of a field. And inside it was entirely made of wood, which illuminated by the natural light was absolutely gorgeous. I hope I can manage to convey that particular light in this illustration. As you can see, I used much warmer tones compared to the previous illustrations. Once the first layer is dry, I apply a second layer, slightly tweaking the concentration of pigment in the mix, but still keeping it very light and loose. There's really no limit to how many layers of watercolor you can apply to gradually build up the chromatic world of your illustration. Just always remember not to get into too much detail, because that's what we're gonna do in the next step. This is the moment when our watercolorable pencils take center stage. I've used Stabilo Aquacolor and Carbothello, both quite brilliant and water soluble. Back to my waterfall illustration, I start selecting the pencils that I'm gonna use, checking them against my reference photo. I don't want to do an exact copy of it, that would be almost impossible. What's important in a travel journal is to convey really the feeling of the places that you've seen, to suggest the mood and the beauty of the landscape. Remember all the details that I told you not to pay attention to so far? Well, this is the stage where we really build up the tiny details of our illustrations. If it helps, you can magnify the reference photo on your laptop or your tablet and really work in areas. Another tip about details: when you have landscapes with a lot of tiny trees and bushes, like this one, you're not expected to draw really the exact shape of every single tree. Instead, just go for a repeated pattern of round or elliptical scribbles, and add a lighter shade of color where the light is hitting the trees. If you want, add also a little bit of dark blue where the shadows are supposed to be. And this will be more than enough to suggest the impression of your forest landscape. What I like to do with a wet brush at this stage is to dissolve some of the pencil work, blend the color profile and soften the overall look of the image. This is highly satisfying. If you have an image that fades into white, like for example the mist on this waterfall landscape, I suggest you to apply some pure water along the fading line and just allow the color to gradually blend, helped with a brush, into the water. This will definitely soften the line once it's dry. Once again, this process of adding pencil details and blending with water can be repeated as many times as you want, as long as you wait for every layer to dry thoroughly. And of course you can leave the very last layer of pencil unblended if you want some of the details to look sharper in the final look of your illustration. In this case, I wanted the lines of the wood to be visible, along with the writing on top of this beam. Once you're satisfied with your illustrations, you can apply the final details to your titles. Start defining where you want your text to be written, and if you still have space, or if you want to, you can add little photographs to enhance your travel journal experience. If you've been following me for a while, you know that I love to print my photos on a small square format and mount them on white rectangles of paper. To replicate the Polaroid aesthetic, they always look super cute. If you want to add a little depth effect, you can outline with pencil the right side and the bottom side of each Polaroid. It's time to write our journal notes, one of my favorite parts. On such small format sketchbooks, this is an A6, I tend not to use fountain pens or loose inks because I'm very clumsy. I'm using a Muji gel pen. It's much more controllable and it allows your calligraphy work to be very tiny. And also I love the overall final look. Of course you can use any kind of fineliners. I'm using UniBall Uni-Pin to write the caption on the Polaroids. It's always a fantastic pen for this kind of journaling. I'm very happy with these first 4 pages of the journal dedicated to Flåm and Olden. In the next video I'm gonna talk much less because by now you know what the process is. And I'm gonna illustrate my travels in Oslo, Bergen and Ålesund. If you are from Norway, feel free to let me know in the comments how badly I butcher the pronunciation of your cities. But if you like the video, make sure you check my journaling playlist on the channel. And if you want, like, comment, share and subscribe so you can always be notified when I have a new video out. That's all for today. Thank you very much for watching and as always, take care and see you soon.